Well, good afternoon, everybody. I've been told I should stay right here for the video, so I'll try not to walk around too much. Hopefully you're here because you have some type of interest in learning about mobile security. Maybe you're a developer from that side. Maybe you're building a mobile security program for your company. Play things by ear with questions go, so kind of jump into things. Just the big point, taking away nothing other than what I say next is that your mileage is going to vary because everybody's situation is different. That's kind of the theme we have going here. I'm usually not a fan of the who am I slide, but I put this in here because this kind of frames a little bit about the different types of scale you can work with as we go. Anybody who's kind of family business essentially knows that you're kind of born into that. So that was my first career, small family farm, lots of agricultural stuff. Kind of moved from there into software development. Actually, my first app in production was related to farming. I did a mobile there, a whole lot there. But sticking with our theme, vehicle that matches with that factor. I did spend most of my career at a large international bank, so 19 years doing a bunch of different stuff. Back over that time period, server-side software development, got into architecture, mobile, eventually mobile security, doing that for. Had to have a little fun with what might represent that from the vehicle perspective. So. Right now, I'm at a mid-sized life sciences company. I will say, because I'm wearing the shirt and we're sponsoring the conference, it's from Encryption Scientific. Big secret there. Only been there about 4 months, but again, doing some mobile security from that perspective, and then pick a vehicle that's in between these two somewhere. Oh, gotta pick a nice sports car, right? All right, so designing your mobile security program has a couple different steps here. First thing is going to be to know your organization. This is all the stuff that's kind of unique to the org. What's it trying to do? Who are the people involved? What kind of budget do you have? History, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be really unique. Next is to identify the mobile risk, and we'll spend a bunch of time looking at that. Once you have that list identified, then you're going to need to prioritize it, decide what you're going to work on. Probably going to have some limits to tackle everything. And then finally, once you prioritize those, you can. Most people think about mitigating risk as the way to respond to that. There's actually a bunch of different options that could be differently appropriate. But the neat thing about this is that the very first one, I can't help you with at all. So if you came to hear about your organization, you just come to the wrong spot. Speak to you, you kind of just have to get into your own space, learn all the stuff that you need. But that's your starting point. You have to have that. Identifying mobile risks, these are mostly common to everyone. We'll look at a bunch of different resources that are available to you, and you can pretty much take that as kind of a starting point for you. Prioritizing mobile risks, again, that's going to be mostly unique to you. Basing that priority based off your organization. Handling the risk kind of goes hand in hand with prioritizing. All right, I'm guessing most people have heard about WASP, Web Application Security Project. Been around for a while. We have a top 10 list focused on the website, as the W implies. We also have a mobile top 10 list. We created that a couple years ago, and it's been updated a couple times. As a side note, there's also an IoT list. I'm going to use that as well. Kind of just hand it to. Certainly not going to run through all the top 10 here, but this is one resource that you can go to. I'll actually use a couple of these things from examples later on, but goaf.org haven't been there. People usually talk about MITRE attack as a framework. It's really more of a knowledge base. Essentially, it's kind of like an inventory of tactics, techniques, and they do have some mitigations in it. But that list of 79 techniques gets into a fair amount of detail. All the different things all the different ways you can attack mobile space with. That's from the device level up to the application level. Attack.mitre.org will get you there, and that mobile technique is kind of the real meat of it. U.S. government actually has a couple different publications. So National Institute of Standards and Technology have a fun place to read things. They have a couple things on mobile. So vetting the security of mobile applications is going to be a resource that you can take when you go secure a third-party application. So that's up to stuff in your organization. So you can take the same principles and apply that to after you're building as well. Mobile threat catalog is exactly what it sounds like. Kind of like the attack list that we looked at. It's going to be a list of stuff that you can use in the threat catalog, really. And a couple years back, probably 3 years ago now, Department of Homeland Security put out a study on mobile device security. Pretty heavy read. It'll take a while, but they cover everything from this one's kind of a quick one, but I threw it in anyway. The Center for Internet Security has a list of what they call the top 20 controls. Not mobile specific, but there's lots of good principles in the top 20. And the game implies it's a list of controls, not risks. But look at what these control for, then security.org has that. All right, this one worth adding to the list as well. Your own uniqueness is going to have to be factored into it. Maybe your management read about something in a journal, or they heard about something at a conference, and now it's on your to-do list. What you're looking at. Get some breach in the past, or highlight an issue you currently have. Focus on that for the future as well. And then I've heard a bunch of different variations of the code, but basically learning by the mistakes of what other companies do, either in your space or just in your space. All right, so you know your org. We just identified a bunch of mobile risks. Prioritize mobile risk. We're kind of look at this in the form of a couple different. So one thing that's going to apply to everybody at some point is a lost and stolen device. So you have to ask the question, what could be lost or stolen? The obvious thing is the device itself, a certain dollar amount. The picture here implies that's just the tip of the iceberg. All the data that's stored on there is what you have to consider from your organizational perspective. Whatever mobile app you use is going to have some type of data. Stuff stored by the operating system is what end users aren't going to readily think about. You might have to help them with that. So that's stuff like Wi-Fi passwords, word prediction lists, accounts, location history, all that kind of stuff that kind of gets embedded in the use of the device, but isn't necessarily top of mind. Then all the stuff that uses contacts they put in there, which they're going to contain API, photos, videos, all the appointments people have, pushing that with, customers, that. Coming down to the bottom of the list, which chat apps you use, all the ones that are out there, that history. So we want to ask what could be the impact of all this. Data loss doesn't get much of a mention, but it's worth putting on there. The app on the device works offline, but for whatever reason hasn't over yet. That's just an off situation. Data disclosure tends to be everybody focuses on. That's the one that's going to be what after you. Threat actors involved are going to be about they would be, but they could say data disclosure in general is unauthorized access has a couple different flavors. So we mentioned the accounts stored on the device. That's going to be one thing. But also, when someone has control of a device with them, phone numbers associated with that, any place that's used for two-factor authentication, SMS. Okay. Denial of service is not real fancy, but the person who had the device no longer has it, so denial of service condition. Social engineering is an interesting one. So when I impersonate someone, doing that sounds pretty easy. If you have their device, it can send something from their accounts on that device. A little bit stronger form of it. You mentioned the monetary loss for the device itself. And if you actually happen to get the device back after it's lost, now where's the possibility? You know that happens, there's some period of time where the device wasn't in control or your control. You're going to have a question about what happened during that time. Maybe theft of the device wasn't the actual purpose of the attacker, it was to get something on the device and then on. And you have to ask the question, who bears the impact? Sometimes it'll be the end user, most of the time it'll be your organization. So to approach something like this, a couple questions to ask ahead of time. So what kind of devices are these? Owned by the organization, and we have control of these. Are they personal devices, or work with the end user a bit? What are stored on devices? Is there a passcode requirement? If there is, how long is it? Somebody has 1, 2, 3, 4. Good for you. Kind of hand in hand with the first question. Can I remote wipe all these devices? Some of them probably managed. Operating system versions on the device is something we'll actually take a look at in a later example. But that'll stop the question what vulnerabilities are in there. And with breach notification log. Every business is going to be in a bit different situation. When the loss actually happens, there's a couple other questions. So, as an organization or a personal owned device, I'll tell you what action you can take at that point. What is actually stored on the specific device that was lost. Help guide your response to that. Or white question is still there. Back. All right, second example is little malware. First, kind of look at what this looks like. Usually, kind of point to third-party app stores and say that's a scary place. Don't get your apps there. But it's also worth looking at the official stores. Where they show up there as well. And you recognize that. Abuse of permissions is another thing. So there's a bunch of apps out there that may not do what they should be doing with the permissions that they have. Obviously, accessing data you don't need. Thing. Here we use one of the chat apps that puts a bubble over other applications. Could have been used going over other apps, but use that functionality all over the entire screen. You can pretty easily. Keylogging is going to capture whatever they type. Kind of the same concept with user resources. So they can put up your network just by loading ads or money for its owner. And the same thing with a cryptocurrency miner for your battery if you're going to that on your device. Apps to exploit OS vulnerabilities. We'll look at that a little bit later. But iOS and Android take the top 10 of the top 50 products that have profiles are another thing to look at just for iOS, but they exist for many legitimate purposes. They have a VPN app on your phone, maybe an MDN company, but the channel of a profile can be used. Make sure you use the wrong one. Not debatable with this last one. Any apps with poor security or privacy practices may have the same impact as malware, even though the malicious intent isn't there. I kind of separate that out a little bit. Obviously, you can decide how you categorize that one. As far as the impact one here, so we've heard about ransomware a ton. It's just for mobile as well. There's flat out data loss. Data access and key logging is going to disclose whatever that data is up to the attacker. Unauthorized access has a couple different flavors, using accounts, that phishing data overlay that we talked about, the two-factor authentication. Anything you could call surveillanceware would fall into that privacy loss category. It could just be casual surveillance where you are, you have the camera and microphone type stuff, or it's going to be more data-oriented. And then the monetary loss side. So, same questions out there. Who bears the impact? Running a mobile security program for your organization, you have to worry about what comes back to you, especially. Stuff as well. Questions asked ahead of time are mostly the same, except for that last one at the top section. How am I going to detect a malware infection? Obviously, knowing that it could happen and some impact from it first step, but you want to be able to detect it when it happens. When it does happen, run through a similar list of questions. I mentioned the OS vulnerabilities, so here's the third one here. Asking what the risk with this is, I kind of just left the speakers themselves. Whenever you read about things like executing arbitrary code with kernel level privileges or system level privileges, or altering network traffic data, pretty much puts the scope of any possible device. So if we're working to arbitrary code, which whatever the attacker intends, kernel privileges, pretty big sum. Looking at the two major OSs here, iOS and Android, the past couple of years, there's plenty of stuff to choose from. Not on the latest version of the OS one of services. Questions here to ask ahead of time is who your users are. So if it's an employee device, you're probably going to have a lot more leeway in enforcing state on the latest operating system. But if it's a customer, for example. There's also edge cases like, that's outside of context. What platform should I support? This question you probably have a standard answer to. It's probably going to be iOS and Android, but I'm going to down the table for you. What operating system versions are currently in use? So if you're walking into a situation where you're now responsible for mobile security, to understand, have 10 versions in back to the beginning. That's going to be a lot different than how am I going to define the OS versions? Define it in the policy, just ask people to follow it. Put these in configured configuration management database with structure around how to use what statement be the latest or second latest. Yeah. Once you have that list, how am I going to enforce them? So again, I could just be through policy, kind of a do it. Device management, locking down devices, have control over that. Or if you're talking about a customer device or a UID system, putting the controls at the mobile application layer. How do you communicate? All right, best example for prioritization is man-in-the-middle attack. So the risk here, everybody knows what a first risk is just data disclosure. In that privileged network position with data passing back and forth, which is going to be whatever that threat actor might be. If you're in that position, relation is a possibility. So again, that's going to be in either direction. From the client sends to the server or vice versa. That and then denial service. So by being in that position, maybe less likely, but they could just make stuff stop flowing. Look at some of the data that is Imperium collects, which is mobile threat defense. So questions asked ahead of time here are what systems my mobile apps talk to, what types of networks my mobile device use. Maybe it's called cellular data, maybe it's Wi-Fi in a particular office, or maybe it's out there as well. What type of data is transferred. So again, that'll tell you the impact based on your what data do you handle mobile, what does that mean to your company? Impact if it's exposed, altered, lost. Importantly, how are you going to prevent it? All right, so we got through that section. Before you jump all the way into handling the risk, worth acknowledging the opposing concerns you have here. Resource side, you have all the stuff that you can work with. It's going to be your tools, your vendors, most importantly, your expertise, your knowledge and knowledge of everybody's going to set to bear against the problem set that you have, as well as all that referencing. Flip side, though, we have all the limitations that are going to be inherent in that knowledge. And budget makes the top of the list because you spend differently in those places. Team size is going to be probably the second big limiting factor there. So how much time you have with all these. With one, that's a whole lot different than. Also, it's worth to mention here just because, and every company is a little bit different, every organization is different. It could be a group that's really tight knit and wants to go solve all the problems there are in the world, or it could be the place that's just like status quo and doesn't want to make somewhere in between. Account for us. Tools that you have in place right now are going to be part of the equation, just place associated with those, and history associated with kind of on that same vein, cost. spent money on something, working or not, and again, if we go through the handling risk, well, a couple examples, kind of put this out on a continuum here, all the way on the scary side. Just want to use HTTP and acknowledge that that's what we're using, then you're kind of accepting all the risk that comes from security. Getting a little bit step better is using HTTPS. Again, we know it's been breached in a couple different ways, working with the client with things like go-to-fail and server with things like heartbleed. Again, attacks, things like that. That's still kind of towards the scary side, but at least move a little bit further over. You could do things like sharing the risk, putting it, putting notice on the user to choose Wi-Fi networks wisely, for example. Do that in that. Again, it's not a control, but it does move things a little bit further over. Cyber insurance is always an option. That's where you're buying a insurance policy against cyber risk and company. Second, I'm getting a little bit more on the healthier side here. Second, the attributes of a certificate are going to partially mitigate things, with the validity of the cert and making sure the service partial mitigation. Certificate transparency logs usually get brought up in this context. Again, it's a partial mitigation of a effective reactive control. Very strong in some further along. Probably worth mentioning, you could not do a mobile app, avoiding risk entirely. The small farm example I gave, a mobile app. Okay from that perspective. Again, I stay on the healthy side as well as certificate. A bit heavier on the work side, but when you look at a spectrum like this, you're going to have to decide where's the right spot along it to be for mine. How much do we have to spend? How much are we risk are we going to mitigate? And everybody's going to have a move from in transit to at rest. Similar thoughts here. You could just go all the way on the scary side and say we're just going to educate the user on sharing some risk with them, but not doing a whole lot. Device encryption. Every modern mobile device comes with that ability. So by using that, you're doing something, but you're accepting a lot of risk because everything there is not being maybe not as far as you'd like. Cyber insurance makes an appearance again. That makes sense to include there. Device encryption, but enforcing a strong passcode device management again to partially mitigate leveraging the device capabilities, but that device passcode stronger. Right across the bottom here is application level encryption. Lots of people have to point out as being very good, but it kind of depends how you do it. So store the keys on the device right next to the data, encrypt with those keys, pretty much giving them away. Generate keys from the user's own password. Algorithm like CDKDS2. Again, make sure you don't store your keys. So that's good. So based on the experience of keys stored on a server is pretty good because it's not behind authentication. It's a little bit better. And all the way on the right side there on the side. Looking at stuff, keys stored in the secure hardware on the device. Worth mentioning secure development practices. A lot of places in the OS will try and capture data for you to make their life easier, your life easier. But if you can things like you can take screenshots when you switch from one app to another, password field so you're not caching like that will help. Perspective. Not storing. And just plain old not storing. Alright, storing secure code is another way. So if you're building an application, you care about this. Also, if you're getting an application from a party, you have to take a little bit different path, but you care about that as well. Your box at the bottom there. If you're trusting a third party, then yep, they're probably okay. That's why we got a third party, so we don't have to worry about it. There's a certain level of protection, but probably not as high as you'd like. With the terms and conditions that you want within the contract, that third party where laying out the behavior of the application, train for solving issues like that. There's a bunch of options up top here to take a look at. So, bug bounty program, doing things like performing human code reviews, scanning your open source for vulnerabilities, penetration testing, all sorts of stuff. All these things are kind of partial mitigations, or all certainly good things to do that worth looking at. Right side there, you want to decide which ones you want to. Status gains, good example. Take that out of the box, get certain level of protection, or you can write some custom rules for it and go hog wild and everything. So lots of good examples there. Again, we talked about how much is different between everybody. So I'll hopefully can share a couple tips to take away that are more common to everybody and put that stuff together and help you apply all that stuff to you. But remembering defense in depth is really the first one. Everybody loves to use that castle example where you have the different layers of defense and one falls down, you have others to. Every tool and process that you have is going to have some type of weakness. You want to make sure all those weaknesses complement it. Clear path through. Staying on top of cybersecurity news is another one. I usually like to refer to mobile years as dog years. So much changes at such a fast pace that chronological year goes by, there's way more than a year. Major OS updates happen annually, device capabilities are kind of on that cycle as well. So after our policy changes, to react to those, developing an app, happen ad hoc. Sometimes there's a fair amount of notice, not as much as like. Through the conference news, come to events like this. These are kind of more periodic, but they happen throughout the year. Good things to watch there. All the vulnerability disclosures, all the pretty much ad hoc, but it's also pretty constant. Watch that. And may not always be drinking from a fire hose, but it's always flowing at some level. Everyone here actually kind of alluded to this in an earlier talk today, but knowing who the smart people are will help you do your own job better. It's very rare that you're going to be an expert in everything. A bunch of domains that are out there that do kind of overlap with mobile a little bit, but they are still pretty distinct. Identity and access management, but just one example. Knowing who those smart people are, to go to them, to get input on solving a problem, if they actually are involved with them. Forward in there. I think I ran through this with a little bit quicker than I thought I would. I know we started slightly late, but I think we should have plenty of time. Yeah, it's a great word. I think I heard once that the word fragmentation came up even before Andrew hit 1.0. Probably say this is. Yeah, looking at the OS versions that are out there, it kind of depends on whether you have control over the devices. Somebody buys them, locks them down with MDM, hands them to the users. You put a bunch of tighter cycle on that, then it's going to have to decide anything. And if you talk about like an employee situation, the leeway in defining step, you don't like this, go buy a new device. If you're making an app for customers, then you're going to have a longer tail there. The OS version is one side of Android, but the security patches are like the Samsung flagship, but Pixel device, and you're going to be up to date for the most part on the security patches. Depends on everything else that you do in that program. So probably could have done a slide thinking about things. Technology perspective, you have the OS stuff to manage. Not managing the device with NPM, and all those controls that you would have had there, you can have to get to the application layer. Stuff like all the data encryption by the app. Legal side, you want to have kind of open the floodgates and say, yeah, everybody can use this device. Question. Purpose. Give it a thumb, but